So delighted to be here for this edition of OMTO Talks with Merrilee Carr. Merrilee is the founder and CEO of UnderTheDoormat. Merrilee, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about UnderTheDoormat.
Yeah, so UnderTheDoormat is a short-term rental company. We focus on the high end of the market, so the luxury end of the market. And we also have a new brand which we're launching, Hosperia, which is about how we work together with smaller property managers to help them compete in the ever-changing world.
So how did you come to be in the short-term rental sector? How and when did it all start for you?
So UnderTheDoormat started in 2014. Interestingly, my background is completely different. I spent 13 years in the energy industry working in Shell, but I did global property management, which turns out to be quite transferable. So I managed the maintenance of 12,000 petrol sites across 43 countries. And now it's about a dispersed network of homes, but it is also about that quality and the standards and how you deliver that at scale. And that's really the thinking behind UnderTheDoormat, is taking that knowledge from a different sector and applying it to a sector that, quite frankly, I'm really much more passionate about, which is travel and local experiences and bringing homes to life, which would otherwise be sitting empty.
And from the time when you started in the industry until now, what would you say have been some of the bigger changes that you've encountered?
I think the industry is constantly changing, but I think one of the biggest trends is that the industry is professionalizing. And whether that is technology players, from channel managers to PMSs, through to the standards that guests expect. As the industry grows, it's not just the early adopters anymore or the people who are just staying in a vacation home. You also have business travelers. You've got all kinds of people who are used to staying in a hotel, and they expect the quality of a hotel, but they are looking for that comfort of a home, and that's ultimately what we're here to provide.
And you touched on regulation. Do you think that there are more barriers to entry now than there were when you began? And sort of how does regulation play into that?
Well, look, regulation is a constantly changing beast, and certainly with my short-term accommodation association role, what I see is that there's probably more regulation coming rather than less. And in some cases, done right, that shouldn't be a problem. But equally, there are some regulators who are going in with a very heavy hand, trying to ban short lets, as we've seen in places like Mallorca and Palma, and things like that. And that's, of course, not, from my view, the right way to go about it. Also because too many people benefit from this industry. The homeowners benefit because they're able to rent it out when it would otherwise be empty. Guests benefit because they've got more choice. And local businesses and everything are benefiting as well. So it's all about getting that balance of regulation right. To your other question about, is it harder to enter the market? In many ways, it's as easy as it ever has been. You can put up a property on Airbnb, maybe on Booking.com, and start selling it. So the barriers to entry are pretty low, but to do it well is where I think people realize, you get to 20 properties and then all of a sudden you need the right technology, you need the right standards, you need processes and ability to deliver that at scale. And I think what we're starting to see is some consolidation in the market, because once you reach 50 plus properties, you really are a completely different company than that person who's managing a few Airbnbs.
What would be your advice for people who are entering or thinking of entering the sector?
Look, I think the key thing is to know what you're good at and where you need to partner with other people who can help you to do the things that you're not an expert on. I think it is knowing, are you great at finding the homes and bringing new homes into the market? Are you great at providing a wonderful guest experience? Are you great at technology? Those are three different aspects of what any business in this sector will be doing. And it's hard to do all three of those well. So I think focusing on what your core strengths are and then understanding where you can get support and partner with people who are good at the other things will help you to scale quicker.
Very good. How do you see the sector evolving in the coming year or years? What do you think are going to be the main sort of changes and things to look out for?
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple of things. You know, a lot of people are talking about consolidation. You know, there are tens of thousands of property managers across the world, and you know, I would expect that over time that's going to change, and there might be fewer. So I think it's really understanding. You know, if you are a small independent property manager, you know, do you want to go it alone and continue to try and do everything yourself? Do you want to partner with companies like Avantio to do the channel management? Do you actually need something more? I mean, that's why we launched Hospiria, is to be able to help those smaller property managers stay independent, to be local, but to access that global world. Equally, there are people who are choosing to exit the market. You know, they might sell out to a Sykes or a Vacasa and just say, you know what, actually better there. But I think for me, the worry is, of course, that you know, as the market grows and consolidates, what I want to avoid is that we lose the soul. I mean, our market is great because it's wonderful homes, local experiences, that authenticity that guests are looking for. And my worry is that as things consolidate, everything gets standardized. And we fall into the same trap that hotels have, and the reason why people are now choosing short-term rentals is for that authenticity. And my hope is that while we professionalize, we don't go too far down that standardization route.
Absolutely, yes, completely agree. And finally, I suppose, what is your favorite thing about your job or the sector as a whole?
I mean, look, what I love about this sector is that actually it's really collaborative. You know, we get to meet and work with people from all over the world. It's a young and growing industry. So I love that we can set standards and create new things. And that's the new benchmark. I mean, I love about my role also the role that I play at an industry level in STA and being able to help really set standards, not just for my company, but for the industry as a whole, and things like accreditation, where, you know, it is actually setting standards across the UK and hopefully across the world over time, but also just looking at how we make sure that the industry is ahead of regulation, and that we're driving those standards ourselves because they're the right things to do. And I think there's great companies out there that are already doing things like noise detection software and all these kinds of things, which actually help to solve these problems, which mean that, you know, the legislators and the regulators are going to be far behind where we are as an industry. And I think if we can achieve that, it certainly makes each of our days more exciting.
Yes, let's hope so.